sooner. I wish I'd broke off that relationship sooner. I wish I'd made that decision sooner. I wish I'd started that business sooner. I wish I'd started that podcast sooner. I wish I jumped on TikTok sooner, which is one of my own personal things. I wish I had done this sooner. Okay. That's what I hear over and over and over again. And when I see that, I'm like, okay. And when you research too, what people regret at the end of their lives, it's not what they did, it's what they didn't do. Mm-hmm. Right? And I consider myself a smart person. It's like, well, that's what all the data says, then I should probably take action more. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's not terrifying. I'm not saying I don't want to throw up sometimes. I am very action oriented, but I don't want to give the impression that it's always easy. Now it has become a new habit, right? It's become my habit. It's a habit I've developed, but I think it's like, oh, well, it must not be scary for you.
You're listening to the First Class Life Show hosted by Lindsay Vertner, a holistic personal development show for high-achieving leaders who desire to maximize their impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So grab a drink, grab your notebook, and let's get started. Hey, First Class family. Welcome back to another episode of the First Class Life Show. And I am really excited for y'all to meet today's guest because we've been chatting already. And listen, I'm just loving her already. So if I love her, I know y'all are going to love her. But y'all already know how we do on the First Class Life Show. We are bringing in all of these leaders from all over the world to help you in your walk with life, to help you be the most phenomenal leader that you are, that you're already being, helping you to maximize your impact while you are creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So we're here to talk about the hard stuff, okay? Not the surface level, easy schmeezy things, but, get down to the nitty gritty of what we go through oftentimes alone as leaders. But y'all already know we don't have to be alone. We're all one big happy family, okay? So let's get into this conversation with the lovely Sarah K. Ramsey. Welcome to the First Class Life Show.
Hi, Lindsay. And as I told you before, I just love the name of the podcast, the idea of the podcast. I talk about it in terms of designing a life you're excited about living, and you're like the first class life, but just so much alignment. And I know it's going to be a great conversation.
I can't wait. So as I mentioned, I've gotten a chance to kind of already start chatting with you. But I want you to peel back the curtains and give us the good tea, okay? The good stuff. Tell us who is Sarah really? Where she come from? What she's about? Give us the juice, girl.
Mm-hmm. So it's hard to describe my story without saying that I was a pastor's daughter, right? So when you talk about the ultimate good girl, right? My whole life was kind of in the spotlight of this situation. So the people pleasing, right? I earned an A+ in people pleasing, I assure you, right? And honestly, in some ways, it kind of worked well for me as a kid. I was likable and I was friends with everybody, and life was pretty good. And then I decided that I was going to get a divorce, or thought about getting a divorce. Pastor's kid, getting a divorce in the South. It was messy is not the word.
Sounds like a Tyler Perry movie.
Yes, it was a Tyler Perry movie, right? And so, and my former brother-in-law used to work for the church too. So when I went to my divorce lawyer, he said it was like the prince and princess were splitting the kingdom. Right? So you talk about pressure.
Yeah.
Right? And especially as a people pleaser, right? Because my people pleasing, I think sometimes people pleasing gets a bad rap because it's it's a self-worth issue, and sometimes it is, but sometimes it's trying to be nice. It's trying to be kind. It's trying to be a good person. It's trying to do the right thing. It's trying to put people ahead of yourself. It's trying, there's a piece of integrity to people pleasing that I think we overlook sometimes, and we make it all bad. And it's just trying to be good to people, right? And in my situation, I was not thrilled about the possibility of blowing up people's lives or blowing up this
Mhm.
or ruining what is a pretty good reputation at the time. I mean, it was really terrifying, much less where are you going to live, where are you going to work, how are you going to support these kids, right? I mean, all these like normal divorce decisions, right? They're terrible and horrific. So like so many people, when they have a scary decision, they put the decision off.
Mm.
Right? Lindsay, you know anybody?
Listen, I can name quite a few. Myself included.
Right. Because, well, I mean, you think about, we've never learned a framework for making decisions in school,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like our parents taught us to make decisions. Some parents didn't teach us anything. And some parents were like, I'm the dad, I'm the mom, you follow what I say to do. And that was kind of old school parenting, right? Like that was what they thought they were supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have this thing called like the internet. Right? So we are exposed to so much information and we get into information overload, right? It's just a different world, right? So all of us are operating with making 35,000 decisions a day. And 35,000, did I say that right? 35,000 decisions a day, and without a framework for decision making. And none of us had parents who taught us to make decisions within the information age, right? So no wonder it's like procrastination or overthinking or indecision, right? Decision-making fatigue, like all that stuff that
Mm-hmm.
are pretty normal in our world. It's not hard to see how that happens, right? So I want to like, okay, if you struggle with any of these things, like give yourself a break, right? Because we weren't taught.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And I know we're going to talk about some of those challenges in helping you to make the decision that you ultimately made down the line, and what that journey looked like. But before we hop into that, we're talking about people pleasing already. And I find it interesting that you said, it's not always a bad thing, because for most people, it usually is tied to their self-worth and things like that. So I want to ask you personally, for you, how did you find your people pleasing? Do you know where it stemmed from, where it rooted from? Obviously, being a pastor's kid, there's that aspect of it. But ultimately, do you know where your people pleasing stemmed from in your life? And was it because you were just, I'm good, I'm going to help everyone, like that was your natural nature, or were there some underlying self-worth issues there?
It was are you familiar with the Big Five personality test?
Mm-hmm.
Ocean? Okay. So within the Ocean personality type, Cornell actually studied who ended up in toxic relationships. Because if anybody Googles me, they're going to see toxic person proof. My podcast is toxic person proof, right? So I have this huge swell of work within toxic relationships. Okay. And oftentimes people assume being in a toxic relationship, it's always a self-esteem issue. It's a self-worth issue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But Cornell actually studied people being in toxic relationships. And within the Big Five personality type, it's openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Okay. So what they found is people who had been in toxic relationships, which are your people pleasers, right, were
Mm-hmm.
actually very open and they were very conscientious. Okay. So if you and I are talking, you could be a parent, you could be a teacher, you could be my boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Okay. And say you're talking to me and you say, hey, I think you need to fix this in your life. I think that you're doing this wrong. I think this is wrong with you. If I'm open and conscientious, I am literally more open to that feedback than some people who are like, what? You're crazy. That's silly. Okay. So it's really weird because when we think about kids and who we want kids to be, it's like we want them to be open. We want them to be conscientious. We want them to take personal responsibility. And those things are still good, but we have to have this other swing into it because, I mean, according to actual research, not opinions, not blogs, not whatever meme on self-worth. And it's tricky because we tend to study toxic relationships in like the stage 4 cancer version of toxic relationships, right? We're recording this in October, which is Domestic Violence Awareness. Okay. which is great. But I'm like, do we really need like a month to recognize that you shouldn't hit your loved ones? Like, have things got that bad? Like, I mean, that's when you kind of think about it, it's like, we don't talk about cancer. And I had a cousin and an aunt go through breast cancer during COVID. So very recent, cancer has really impacted my life very recently, right? So I'm not minimizing cancer's benefits. I'm talking about like people pleasing, okay? So when you get into that I'm open and conscious, and if you tell me something that's wrong with me, I'm going to work to fix it. I'm going to work to improve myself. I'm not going to give up on the relationship. I'm really loyal. I'm going to stick this out. I don't have to be right? This is people pleasing. Right? And it's not, oh, I'm worthless. I'm messed up. I can never live without you. I'm stupid, right? I mean, sometimes it's that, but it's not always, especially your leaders, your first class life people who have ended up with everybody's been in some toxic relationship, friendship or whatever, right? A professional relationship. And they may be thinking like, gosh, is it really a self-worth issue or something else going on? And, within how we treat cancer and how we cure cancer, we don't only talk about it in the stage 4 levels. I have family members who had mastectomies, right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal, right? Like that's stage 3 and 4. And when you're talking about maybe a romantic relationship where there's violence, that's stages 3 and 4, right? For us to cure cancer, for us to cure toxic relationships, for us to really prevent, those power dynamics within relationships, we got to get into those precancer cells, cancer prevention, and get real clear. It's like, there's cancer, there's people pleasing, right? But there's specific types that different people are in. And if, you're first class lifers, I guarantee you, it was probably not a self-worth issue, because they probably have a lot of self-worth in lots of other areas. Now, after a toxic relationship, you got a friend who's been like tearing you down. No, at that point, you don't feel like, your self-worth is that great. But going back to those precancerous cells, going back to those early stages, and really looking at the Big 5 personality and research, am I open and conscientious? Let's say you have a toxic boss. Well, you need to work harder. This is your fault. You need to step up to the game, right? If you're open and conscientious, you don't look at that and say, my boss is a jerk. You say, okay, I'm really into self-improvement. I can improve myself. I can figure this out. I'll work a little harder, right? Does that align? It's something I call smart girl syndrome. And it's certainly what I have. And I think a lot of your high performers will understand it, because, Einstein says that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting to get different results. Okay. We kind of know that. But I played classical piano. Okay. So when I wasn't good at a song, yeah, I know, right? Like, right? But when I couldn't play a song, you practice more. You get more lessons. You work harder. If you're building a business, you get another business coach. You figure out something. You fail the strategy. You work harder. Okay. It really is a good strategy in lots of different areas. But in the area of people pleasing, toxic relationships, okay, they don't like me. I'm going to work harder to get them to like me. You see where it kind of falls apart, but it's not a self-worth issue. It's smart girl syndrome.
Hey, I know it can be exhausting blazing the trail and creating a legacy. And you're at the point in your life where you desire peace and rest. You want to enjoy both the physical freedom and financial freedom to live life on your terms. You understand the importance of prioritizing your self-care. And you know that you're worthy of transformational experiences surrounded by other high-achieving, goal-oriented women just like you. That's why you deserve to be treated like VIP at the First Class Life Luxury Self-Care Retreat for Women. You deserve to show up and just be you. Away from the titles and roles that keep you busy from day to day. You deserve the luxury to fully unplug. It's time for you to embrace your first-class life. Visit firstclassliferetreats.com to secure your VIP spot today, because you deserve it.
So I love that fresh perspective on, just people pleasing, because it can be a fine line between being the conscientious versus the self-worth, self-care piece of it, so we have to be mindful of how we are showing up as a people pleaser, if that's something that we do. So I want to make sure that the first class family follow that analogy, right? So we're often focused on the stage 4 toxic cancer level of people pleasing, but we really need to focus on preventative measures, and that stage 1, before it escalates to stage 4, how can we, turn it around and hone it into a way it is more of personal development and less more of pleasing everybody at the sake of your own self, to your own detriment. So what advice would you give to anybody that's listening that maybe is struggling with people pleasing on the more negative side of things versus personal development and growing side of things?
Yeah, I read recently a really interesting book about someone who was had a double life or something. It was like a perfect book club book. I can't remember the name. Oh, My Second Life or something like that. It was great, but she struggled with alcohol addiction. Okay, and she had been sober for so many years, and it was because I got asked the same time I was reading this book, someone asked me about my people pleasing now. Okay. Because what I have not told you in that conversation about putting decisions off, remember the whole divorce thing, and I was so scared and putting decisions off. I put off the decision for 2 years. I felt my strategy at that point was to go around, and it was if I had a permission note that I was hoping everyone would sign off on, so they wouldn't be mad at me. Yeah. That's certainly not in the healthy, conscientious. Before anybody thinks I'm whatever, that was not my
That's
best.
how it works, though. It's real.
Yeah, that was not my worst self. And I really thought if I could gather enough data, do enough overthinking, convince people, do enough research, bring enough data back, I could convince people to okay, that is a good decision. You are making a good decision, right? And didn't work, put an enormous amount of stress on my body, and I eventually blacked out while driving in Charlotte, North Carolina. Completely sober, it was literal stress. My hair was falling out. I was losing weight, gaining weight. My face, I remember going to the pool and wearing a long sleeve shirt at the pool because my back was so broken out from stress. Just it looked like I had the chicken pox.
I gotta pause you because this is big. And so I need for everybody to understand what was just said, because we come across this, with clients often where we don't recognize the stress that we are under, the burnout that we are under, some of those invisible blocks that we go throughout the day, the procrastination, perfectionism, overthinking, all of that stuff, the lack of self-care because we are doing all the things for all the people. We don't recognize how it takes a toll on us physically. And that's why I'm a big advocate for self-care. Self-care is not selfish, so that we don't find ourselves in situations like this. But you just said, you blacked out while you were driving, and you weren't drunk, hadn't been drinking or anything, but it was a result of all the stress you were putting yourself under. You had all of these physical issues that were popping up as a result of the stress you were putting yourself under. Oftentimes when we come across these physical things oh, I'm breaking out. Oh, I must change my diet. Or, we go to the typical surface level things, not recognizing that it's all of the things that we've been running rampant in our mind, taking a toll on us physically. And so it's important to listen to our bodies. So sorry, I had to make sure that was clear for the first class family, and just share with us about that. Excuse me. On when you started to make the connection of everything that I'm putting myself through mentally is showing up physically. Talk to us about that journey.
Well, now I love what you said about self-care isn't selfish. And now I think about, not to put like one more burden on us, it is my responsibility as a good human to not allow myself to get to that point again.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Right? We're not talking about selfish. Like, I was in a crowded intersection in Charlotte, North Carolina. My friend grabbed the wheel. I literally could have killed someone.
Mm.
Right? This is not responsible behavior.
Right.
Yeah, I wasn't drinking. It was 2 p.m, right? I didn't drink the night before. But it was not responsible behavior, right? And I think that's really one of the flips that switched for me, again, with that conscientiousness, right? I'm a conscientious person. I want to do the right thing. I want to be a good person, right? And so when it felt like being a good person got everyone else's permission, that strategy didn't work. But in my own mental state, when being a good person meant, whoa, I have a responsibility to my own health and my own mindset, that I'm not getting to the end of my rope and going off on my kids, going off on my husband, going off on somebody at work, going off on somebody who gets on my nerves, right? Like, or blacking out and driving, right? So now the way I see it, when I see those signs, I'm just like, okay, this is at the time, and I'm not calling anyone listening to this stupid, but at the time I was like, okay, this is just stupid, right? I'm trying to get all these people's permission. I'm trying to get them to sign off on something that's not their decision. This decision is literally ruining my life in every way. Okay, whatever. And that was my like people pleasing switch off. Right? I was like, if you say you care about me and you don't care that I'm blacking out while driving, then you don't care about me.
Yeah.
Right? You care about you. You care about that this divorce is going to be inconvenient for you. You care that you should have seen some signs that you missed. You care about your opinion. You care about your, I mean, a lot of people were in marriages that they probably should have gotten out of. And they were very committed to me staying in mine so they could justify them staying in theirs.
Yeah. That projecting, girl. It works in all the ways.
That's on you, right? If you want to black out while driving and kill someone and your face look like you have chicken pox, have at it. Have at it. That's your journey. And I mean, I probably sound a little angry. I was real angry at the time.
Now you're healed.
Now it's calmed down a bit. So, and also another point, it was interesting. My first book is called Becoming Toxic Person Proof, which is, how to be kind without having your kindness used against you. Like that's that stage of my journey.
Okay.
That book is called Problem Solved: Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. Okay. So again, the people pleasing, no framework for making decisions. Now we're in the information age. Okay. So at the time, I was so scared about making a decision because it was like what my life felt like spaghetti. Okay. My divorce was going to impact my dad's job. It was going to impact all these people that I knew. And I was going to hurt my reputation because they didn't believe in divorce. And I had very young kids. I was actually working for the church at the time. So I was going to have to get a new job. I was going to have to figure out somewhere to live. I was going to have, right. And that's what I call a spaghetti decision because it was so wrapped up together. It was so interwoven. It was really messy. Okay. So it was really hard to make decisions within that messiness because it was like, as soon as I felt like I pulled one noodle, like the whole plate was going to fall off.
Yeah.
Right.
And I love that analogy. One, because I like food. Two, because I like analogies. Okay. But I can picture what most of us go through. So most of us, when we go to make a decision, we want our spaghetti noodles, if you will, to be lined up in straight, easy to read lines. But spaghetti don't work like that once it's cooked.
Spaghetti does not work like that. And I call it going from spaghetti to waffles. Okay. So waffles have boundaries. They have squares. You can easily take one bite at a time. Right. And so when we can start trying to solve our problems and make decisions one bite at a time, we don't get into overwhelm. We don't put off the decision. We don't get into procrastination, and we get into action much more quickly. And this could be a business decision. I mean, golly, if you've got any entrepreneurs and stuff on here, I mean, we got spaghetti problems. Right? Well, Facebook changed this algorithm, and then Instagram has this algorithm, and should we do TikTok? But I don't really like to dance, and maybe I should do this, and should I invest in this? And if I should I start a podcast, or right? I mean, like, that's how entrepreneurs are speaking in today's.
Yeah. On and on and on and on.
Right? Spaghetti thinking, right? Spaghetti thinking. When we can put it into a waffle square of which social media strategy am I going to focus on this week?
Mm-hmm.
Right? One waffle square, one bite. Okay. In my own life, it looked like, okay, which divorce lawyer am I going to hire? Where am I going to live? How am I going to tell people I'm making this decision? Mm-hmm. What am I going to do for work? Right? Like, and again, now that we're in the information age, which divorce lawyer should I use? I can Google that. I can ask friends. It's pretty easy once the spaghetti is unraveled to create those action plans. Mm-hmm. Where I see people messing up is unraveling the spaghetti. It's the step from taking it spaghetti to waffles. People don't have an issue with waffles to action. Okay? Best algorithm, which social media has the best algorithms right now? That's the one you focus on this week. Mm-hmm. Right? What is the best way to start a podcast? You can Google that, right? Like, you can figure that out. Once you unravel that spaghetti, it's going from spaghetti to waffles. That's tricky, but waffles to action is actually pretty easy within the information age. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, that's really good. And I want to make sure that I point out for some of my overachievers out there, listen, pot calling the kettle black, okay? But it's also very important to be mindful that we don't get into now I've got all this information and we're making a bigger pot of spaghetti rather than progress over perfection, taking that first step. So if you are one of those people, again, myself included, I get it. Make sure that you're just very mindful of, I'm not consuming information as a way to prolong the decision even more. So do you have any advice in that way?
Talk about, right? And it is interesting. I think you can see now how, like, my two works connect, right? Because people are like, what? You were doing toxic relationships and now you're doing decision making? And it's like, what? It's like, yeah. Because especially if someone has gaslit you, or if you had a controlling parent, maybe, and a lot of overachievers had really controlling parents, right? And so the parent said, produce more, achieve more, and then we have to figure out a framework for decision making that's not, how do I make my dad proud of me? Right? Like, how do you make a decision? How do I make people pleasers? How do I make someone not mad at me? Right. So there's tons of information about this in Problem Solved, Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. But a couple of analogies that I want to talk to you about. Please, 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 please get into momentum, not motion. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think about race car drivers. Think about how much stress a race car driver puts on their body, right? It's expensive to race cars. They're burning fuel. They're putting stress on their body. They have, like, injuries and all that kind of stuff. But all they're doing is going around in circles. Mm-hmm. Right? But they're pumping the gas and they're thinking, oh, I'm working. And their body thinks, and, if their goal is to race cars, fine. But I see a lot of people doing that in their business strategies and their healing strategies and their life strategies. And they are just running in circles and they just push the gas harder. Right? It's like, but you're not going anywhere. It's like, but I don't know where I'm going, so I'm just going to go faster. And it's like, no. Don't do that. Don't do that. And one of the ways off the track is really asking yourself what problem you're trying to solve. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, in a business setting, what problem am I trying to solve? I'm trying to get 10 new clients this month. What problem I'm trying to solve? I'm trying to figure out how to get my team to work together cohesively. What problem am I trying to solve? I'm trying to figure out a new communication strategy to enable more accountability, within my work team, right? So it doesn't matter what problem you're trying to solve, but that is I call it the magic question, because that's like how to know which exit to get off on in that race car analogy, right? Because there are a million exits, right? But going in circles is not the solution. So if you get off the exit and you don't like it, you can get off a different exit, but don't keep going around in circles. Because when you get off an exit, it allows you to create momentum. You know, in my own life, it was like, okay, I hired the divorce lawyer. Okay, I found somewhere to live. Okay, I found out how to have these conversations. They were all scary, terrible decisions. Hiring someone could be scary and terrible. Firing someone could be scary and terrible. Hiring a business coach, a new therapist, a new life coach, a new company to help you implement algorithms, right? Whatever it is, right? These are scary decisions.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, hoping for different results, right? So if you already know going as fast as you can around the track just keeps you in circles, pick an exit, any exit, right? Get off the track, right? And then you can learn from there. But in knowing which exit to get, what problem I'm trying to solve, right? That is what I call the magic question, because it really gives some clarity. You can even ask if it feels like, oh, I'm not really sure. There's in the 3rd chapter of the book, it's called 7-level problem solving. Okay. So if you have 10, 15 minutes, you're waiting for, dinner to finish, you're waiting for a kid to finish baseball practice, whatever, you can literally ask yourself, what problem are you trying to solve 7 times?
Yep.
Okay. I've seen this with people in parents. Like, okay, so one of my clients, she had her parents her mother had to go to a nursing home, and her dad and brother were fighting about it. Okay. So I said, what problem are you trying to solve? She said, I'm trying to get my brother to agree with me about my mother's care. And I said, okay, what problem are you really trying to solve? And when it got to the end, it was like, I really want my mother to feel well cared for. I have guilt that my mother's in a situation. I've lost time with her. I want my mother to feel loved in her last days, right? And so getting my brother to agree with me is a very difficult problem to solve, because you're trying to get another human to do something they don't want to do. Okay. So there are some creative solutions to that, but it usually ends up, especially with siblings, like 2 people butting heads. Okay. This could be a business partner you're trying to butt heads with. This could be an ex-husband you're trying to butt heads with, right? But like, how can I get another human to change their mind so they agree with me? Like every religious, every therapist, that is a terrible problem to try to solve. But you can get your way. You just have to get creative. Right? And when we're all kind of fish swimming in our own, well, I'll tell you this. I had a client and she was so mad because her ex-husband wasn't paying. He said he was going to pay $100 for a basketball goal. And then he wasn't paying for his half of the basketball goal. And I said, how much time have you spent on this week? She said, probably 20 hours. I'm so mad. I had talked to my girlfriends about it. I talked to this and this. I said, aren't you in sales? And she said, yeah. I said, how much money could you have made this week if you'd spent that time prospecting instead of fighting with him? And she said, several $1,000s. And I said, okay, so the problem you were trying to solve is to get back $100, which you very easily could have done, not get your ex-husband to give you $100, which is very hard to do. And she was like, but especially with overachievers, high achievers, it's like, this isn't right. But this isn't fair. But they should act this way. We are conscientious, right? Remember that conversation about being conscientious and wanting to do the right thing? It's like, but they should want to do the right thing. If they're not going to do the right thing, I'm going to make them do the right thing. And it's like, is it getting you what you want? Or are you on that circle track?
We control our behaviors and how we react to the things around us.
But we can get what we want. We just need a new strategy. We need to get off on a different exit, not just drive faster around the track and doing the same thing over and over again.
It makes me think, going right back to, you had that blackout as a result of all the stress. And what I just heard you say is that we have to come up with creative solutions to our problems. That's turning the spaghetti into the waffles through that creativity. But sometimes when we are so stressed or we're lacking self-care, there's too much clutter that we can't even come up with those creative solutions because there's so much going on, which is another testament to why self-care is so important, is so that you can come up with these creative solutions. And you can understand, like, okay, my husband, my ex-husband, my partner, my whomever, fill in the blank here, their actions are outside of my control. I can do what I can to maybe influence some of their actions. However, what can I control? And that's where that creative problem solving comes in. Like you told your client, girl, you're in sales. Get it together and go make 1,000. Okay. Stop worrying about this penny when you can make yourself $1.
Are you loving the First Class Life Show? Then join our private Patreon community. Not only will you help to support our ability to provide you with great content, but you can also get exclusive perks like bonus videos and resources, discounts, episode transcripts, and more. So what are you waiting for? Join today at patreon.com/firstclasslife. Again, that's Patreon, patreon.com/firstclasslife.
That's it, right? And I do want to introduce, a lot of times we think about self-care as, a mental health day or bubble baths, and really starting to think about self-care as clarity.
Yeah.
Ourselves, right? There is people are like, how did you write 2 books in 2 years? Like, how do you make this happen? How do you make this happen? It's like, I'm not in spaghetti thinking anymore, and I'm not driving around that circle. I do have more time than everyone else right now, right? But like, people who know what problem they're trying to solve and are taking action towards those problems are going to get more done. They're not going to be they are going to be overachieving, but they're not going to be stalling out through perfectionism, procrastination, and all that kind of stuff. And again, please forgive yourself. If this is not me sticking my finger in people's faces, this is like, oh, here, I learned from the school of hard knocks. If I can help prevent you. And again, no matter if you had, the best, life coach in the entire world as your parent that you grew up with, they still did not teach you about how to make decisions in the information age. And the internet changed a few things. Right? So it's a very new, right? It's a very new process. And we do have information at our fingertips, but we have to get it from spaghetti to waffles to be able to, and that is a form of self-care, right?
Yep.
Clarity is kind. Clarity is the kindest thing you can do for yourself. So if it's taking 10 minutes, and what problem am I trying to solve? What problem am I really trying to solve? What problem am I really, really trying to solve? When that client did that, she's like, I'm trying to get my $100 back. I was like, can you solve that problem? Yeah. How long will it take you to solve that problem? An hour. Okay, then stop fighting with your ex. Right? But there's so many creative solutions that just on first glance feel impossible. But then when we get real clarity on what we really want, because, frustrating people or frustrating situations, they could be business situations, the economy, whatever. It feels like it's just in our face and it's all we can see. Right?
Yes.
And so when we're like, okay, what do I really want? What do I really, really want? What problem am I really trying to solve? Is there a creative solution to do that? We can almost Google it. That's really, it's like, you can Google it at that point. You're going to have all this information at your fingertips that feel like it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll do that.
Yeah. It makes me remember the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. quote where you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step.
Exactly.
And going back to those straight line spaghettis, oftentimes we want to see the whole staircase, but we just need to get clarity. Like, of course, have the end goal in mind, but then, all right, what do I need to do right now to get to step 1, to get to step 2? Okay, now I'm on step 2. I see step 3 and step 4 kind of in my peripheral. What do I need to do to get to step 3? Now I'm step 3, what I need to do to get to step 4. So this has been such good conversation. Listen, I told y'all was going to love y'all some Sarah K. Ramsey, okay? Because we talk about the real on the First Class Live Show and get into the nitty gritty of how we're showing up or how we're not showing up and why, okay? Because we are more alike than we are different. And I just want to take a moment. Like, Sarah, you up for a quick game?
I'm up for a quick game. I love it.
Okay. Let me get out my timer. This is called First Class Favorites, okay? And how it works is I'm going to say, what is your favorite fill in the blank? And you fill in the blank. Pretty simple, right? But you got 10 seconds to answer.
Okay. I'll be fast.
Yes, you got 10 seconds to answer. And if you'd miss the buzzer, then what is a consequence that the First Class family has to have? And listen, don't worry about whatever you're going to say, because what's a consequence to one positively may be negatively to somebody else, because we hear the word consequence and we think, oh, it's negative, but it's a matter of perspective. Like an extra push-up to somebody into fitness is like, oh, that's nothing.
That is literally what I was thinking. I was like, I'll have to do 50 push-ups and do like it on like Facebook or something.
But for me, an extra push-up is like, child, are you crazy? I don't like working out. So it's a matter of perspective. So what is the consequence if you miss the bus?
I was thinking push-ups, which is like the whole energy conversation about like reading people's minds and how energy, because I was literally thinking push-ups and I don't even do push-ups, but like, here we go. But I'll do 50. That's like,
okay. All right, let's do this. So we'll start with something easy. What is your favorite food specifically? Go.
Avocado.
Oh, look, I didn't even hit the buzzer and you already have it. Any certain way you like your avocado?
All the ways, but I try to eat it. Like I love guacamole and stuff, but I love it too. Like, even on like with chia seeds is like so healthy. It's like all that fiber and healthy fats and like, it's like, you know, and it like leftover chicken and you mix it all in for lunch. It's like I eat avocado almost every day.
Nice. There's actually this wrap sandwich that I want to get from this deli here. And it has avocado in it, but it was really good. I don't really know the name because it was a catered lunch that I was a part of. And I was like, where'd this come from? And then I'm like Googling it to see their menu. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to order this.
Yeah, that is what I would order on the menu. Every time I go, it's like, what has avocado on it? So,
So what is your favorite color? Go.
Blue.
Okay, and why blue?
Probably because I have it on today. I wear a lot of black, but I tried to filter in some other colors, and I love red too. Both of my books have like they're black and gray and red. So yeah, but I love all the colors. I asked you.
Yeah, and blue is so calming as well. Blue used to be my favorite color for the longest time. Probably like half my life. It's just so calming. You know, robin's egg blue, cerulean.
I like periwinkle. There's some really beautiful flowers, like wildflowers that grow in my area, and they're like this, but a little more purpley, like a periwinkle, and they're just so pretty. They're so pretty.
Okay, well, speaking of, what's your favorite flower? Go, if you have.
White roses recently. Trader Joe's for like $10, you can get like a bouquet of white roses. And they're just so beautiful. And they make I feel like I'm a Parisian, like walking through with my like loaf of bread and my fresh flowers from Trader Joe's. So that's my most recent favorite.
Yes. Okay, what is your favorite book, author, and title? Go.
I'm going to go with the only book I've read twice, which is Happy at Last, The Thinking Person's Guide to Joy, by Richard Connor. And that's a really hard question. I really like a lot of books, but that's probably the only book I've ever read twice.
Nice. Okay, I like it. What is your favorite song specifically? Go.
Landslide by Well, I've been afraid of changing because I have built my life around you. And I just like it's the most calming song. But if no one has heard the people on The Voice sing More Than Words, it's like this old song, but the people on The Voice and John Legend, I mean, it's so good. So close second.
So who is Landslide by?
Fleetwood Mac.
Got it. Okay. So next one, what is your favorite activity to do to relax? Go.
Yoga. Question. And I it's like one of those things, it's like I'm never sad when I do yoga, but it's kind of one of those things I put off. And I'm like, I'll just do a different workout today, or I'll do this, right? So that every time I do yoga, it's brain, body. I mean, it's just the science behind yoga is just crazy. Just what it is for you.
Nice. Your favorite place to travel specifically? Go.
I'm going to Tulum, Mexico soon. Puerto Vallarta probably might be my favorite because in the winter it's still warm and you can see whales swimming by. In the ocean, there's whale watching.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think that's a more true answer. Anywhere I can go and see dolphins or whales in their element. Right? It's just free. It's because I secretly hope I can still become a mermaid when I go.
Hey, listen. Time is still here, okay?
I know, yes. There's still don't stop believing.
You didn't miss the buzzer at all. Thank you for playing our little game with us, First Class Favorites. And listen, First Class family, if you are new to the show, make sure you click over to the side and join our Patreon community. It is our private community where you get access to bonus videos from our phenomenal guests. You get bonus resources and discounts, and you get access to our First Class Favorite Things list, okay? It is a uniquely curated list of our reading list, our song lists, because we know everybody doesn't like to read. So when you want to get your body jamming with music, we got a playlist, we got a reading list. Because we're a cultured people, our favorite places to travel, and because we're all about self-care, our favorite relaxing activities, uniquely curated by our lovely guests. So if you want access to the First Class Life Favorite Things list, then join our Patreon community. Thank you for adding to that. Lovely, Sarah. Lovely. So meanwhile, let's get back into this conversation, okay? Because we've talked about some really good stuff, the art of people pleasing in a positive versus negative way, if you will. Coming up with effective ways to make decisions and going from spaghetti to waffles. Okay, just so much good, juicy stuff. And right now, I want to ask you a question. So once again, if you are new to the First Class Life show, First Class Life is actually an acronym, and it stands for all of the different skills and characteristics that you want to embody into your lifestyle to be able to create a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness, while maximizing your impact at that, the whole purpose of this show. And so if you want to find out what First Class Life actually stands for, then there are two ways you can do that. Either one, you can go to firstclasslifeshop.com and you can buy the book, okay? First Class Life, 10 Key Factors to Create a Life Full of Purpose, Fulfillment, and Happiness. Or you can go back and listen to the very first episode of the First Class Life show where I break down each of those characteristics, okay? But meanwhile, we're going to ask the lovely Sarah, which key factor of First Class Life do you resonate with the most?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely action oriented. I recently, are you familiar with the Strength Finder? Okay. So in the midst of my mess, I did not get activator as my number one strength, right? So, and I want to say that to say, remember the people pleaser, remember that I stalled out on decision making, remember I blacked out while driving because I didn't take action, right? So there was that version of Sarah. And here's why, Lindsay. I believe in data, I believe in research, and I believe in patterns, right? I know you're first class people. they believe in those things too, right? Every time I talk to people, especially females, I'm female, I love my girls, but like, especially girls, oh, I wish I'd done that sooner. I wish I'd broke off that relationship sooner. I wish I'd made that decision sooner. I wish I'd started that business sooner. I wish I'd started that podcast sooner. I wish I jumped on TikTok sooner, which is one of my own personal things. I wish I had done this sooner. Okay. That's what I hear over and over and over again. And when I see that, I'm like, okay. And when you research too, what people regret at the end of their lives, it's not what they did, it's what they didn't do. Mm-hmm. Right? And I consider myself a smart person. It's like, well, that's what all the data says, then I should probably take action more. Right? Now, I'm not saying it's not terrifying. I'm not saying I don't want to throw up sometimes. I am very action oriented, but I don't want to give the impression that it's always easy. Now it has become a new habit, right? It's become my habit. It's a habit I've developed, but I think it's like, oh, well, it must not be scary for you. No, it's terribly scary.
Thank you for making that known.
Right? It's terribly scary. Putting out this new book, Problem Solved, was terribly scary, right? Because I was like, oh, I feel like I've got the cure to life here, but how do I put it out in a way, right? That people can understand. If you're breaking down the language of overwhelm, spaghetti thinking, right? Like the spaghetti thinking chapter, I rewrote for a year. I rewrote that. Every other chapter, ding, 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 ding. That one chapter, a year. I rewrote for a year because it's like, how do you explain overwhelm in a way that's easy for people to understand and not do anymore? That's not an easy task. It's terrifying, right? And once you put a book out there, it's like, you get a review. This is stupid. I don't understand what she's saying. What's this talking about? It's like, I don't get it, right? Like, that's no good. And it's on the internet forever. Right? It's scary. It's scary to put yourself out there. My friends and family are like, oh yeah, you're always putting out those, Instagram lives and reels. It's like, do you think I want to do that all the time? Do you think I'm that obsessed with my face that that's what I feel like doing every day? Because it's not.
Right.
Like, I wish I could hide in my house and never wear makeup and wear sweatpants and like all the time. I mean, not all the time, but it's like, so I am very, very action oriented, and it's what problem I'm trying to solve. What steps is it going to take me to get there? Mm-hmm. And how I feel about it is pretty irrelevant.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I haven't actually read the book, but I know that.
There's one phrase, and she's for anyone I'm sure everyone's familiar with Eat, Pray, Love. So it's the same author who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. And she basically said that she grew up really fearful and really afraid. And eventually she got to a point and she said, my fear is not that interesting. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You make our fear very interesting, as if it's like, oh, guess what? I'm afraid of something. I'm going to the therapist. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk to my friends about it. Out my comfort zone. And I'm like so special with this fear. And I'm making fun of it on purpose because it's like, there's nothing interesting about being afraid.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty uninteresting and boring. And if we can kind of flip that switch in our minds of like, it helped me a lot. And I was like, my fear is not that interesting.
Yeah. That's really good.
It changed my life. I mean, it really did, and continues to change my life.
Mm-hmm. We have to take that action. Like we've been saying this whole time, progress is better than perfection. Don't worry about the 100 steps. Focus on what's the next step. Practice self-care so that you can have clarity on what that looks like, on what's the next step, or clarity to come up with those creative solutions to your problems. So thank you. This is like, I feel like we need a part 2. There's so much that we didn't even get into. But for now, tell us how you impact the world as a leader today.
Yeah, so there's 2 pots of Sarah K. Ramsey. So my newest work is in Problem Solved, Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. Whether you're business or you're personally, this is the high performance coaching for females, right? Like male high performance coaching. I've done it. I've done it. Brain Startups, right? It's like not the stuff females are struggling with. It's just not. Right? And so getting out of that spaghetti waffle thinking, being very quickly able to, what problem am I trying to solve? How am I going to solve it? What's my action plan? Done. Right? You feel like you have more time than everyone else, I promise. And then, for the last several years, I've been doing my Wondrous Woman program, which is basically becoming toxic person proof. And I see so many incredibly intelligent females put up with such bad, and raising my hand, not pointing my finger, raising my hand, and saying like those, let's get over smart girl syndrome and those attributes that make you successful in your career, let's apply that to your relationship. So that's my world. And I run the Toxic Person Proof podcast, which I'd love to have you on because we talk about designing a life you're excited about living. And so getting that first class life is a huge, because that's what it's about. We kind of get stuck in this obsessive research over narcissism and this kind of stuff. It's like, it's the first class life, that life you're excited about living, that success, that new love, that new life, that up-leveled life. That's real success.
Yes. I love it. And let everyone know, because they gotta find you in these internet streets. So how can everybody reach you, connect with you, follow you? Please tell us.
Yeah. So my website is Sarah K. Ramsey. My Instagram is Sarah K. Ramsey Author. And first book is Problem Solved: Simple Habits for Complex Decisions. You can see it on my website. And then Becoming Toxic Person Proof: Clear the Confusion and Learn to Trust Yourself. So if you Google Toxic Person Proof for my name, I pop up. So you will be able to find me very easily.
Yes, make sure y'all go out there and follow the beautiful Sarah K. Ramsey, okay? And get her books, all right? So we will have those links for you in the show notes. So all you got to do is click it and go follow, go purchase, do all of the things so that you can stay connected and so that you can stay toxic person proof. All right. So I have one more question for you. And what advice would you give to myself, to all the listeners, to the First Class family on how we can continue to create a first class life, a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness?
Recognize the difference between emotional problems to solve and practical problems to solve. Okay. So what I see, especially with women, is like the Titanic is going down and they say, how do I get used to the idea of dying? Or how do I deal with cold water? Or how do I get okay? So they try to solve the emotions around the Titanic going down rather than asking questions like, how do I build a lifeboat? Where's the captain? How do I swim out my way out of this? Like how many clothes can I put on so I don't freeze to death, right? And when I've been reading stuff and studying, if you believe in like generational cycles and like all that kind of stuff. So females throughout history have not had a lot of power, right? And so the way they adapted and adjusted was like focusing on, well, how do I accept the situation? How am I okay with the situation? How do I accept someone else's bad behavior because I can't change it, right? And please, it is a new day, ladies. It is a new freaking day. Like if the Titanic's going down, think about what are my practical steps, right? What are my practical action steps? And the biggest thing, if someone is mean to you at work and it's like, okay, how do I feel about this situation is an emotional problem to solve. How am I going to communicate with this person about this situation is the practical problem to solve. Okay. So when you get these little sticky notes, it's like just in your internally sticky note, emotional problem solve, practical problem solve, right? Public speaking. I'm scared to put myself out there. Okay. How do I get over the fear is an emotional problem to solve. You can spend 3 years in therapy and spend a lot of money to solve that. Okay. The Titanic's still going down. How am I okay with how do I get over the fear of cold water? It's like, what? The Titanic's going down. You don't need to get over the fear of cold water. You need to get in a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so to have that first class life, it's a very simple switch of like, is this an emotional problem to solve or a practical problem to solve? And then really focusing in those action steps on the practical problem to solve. And so your fear is not quite as interesting to you.
Mm-hmm. All right. I hope y'all was taking notes. And if you weren't, good thing you can watch the replay. Okay. So thank you, Sarah, for being a phenomenal guest on the First Class Live Show. And thank you, First Class family, for tuning in yet again for another episode. I know that you can be doing anything in the world right now, but you have spent your time here with us because you are living your first class life. You are out there maximizing your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So make sure you tune in next time. Make sure you join our Patreon community, subscribe, like, comment, share this episode out, okay? Because there's somebody you know in your life that has never even heard of this and they need to hear what Sarah has to say, okay? So share this episode, share it on all your social medias, and make sure you tune in every week as we bring back another phenomenal guest to help us maximize our impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. So until next time, bye.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But please be sure to subscribe to the First Class Life Show. And don't forget to rate, leave a review, and join our private community so that we can continue to provide you with great personal development conversations to help you maximize your impact while creating a life full of purpose, fulfillment, and happiness. You deserve it.